So my name is Karen. Do you want me to?
Yeah, what do you?
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so my name is Karen, and I apologize in advance because after seeing everyone's so well thought out presentations, I was like, wow, like mine is going to be so bad compared to everyone else's. But I just really wanted to talk at you guys for a little bit about the things I've learned so far that contributed to me speaking today at the Human-Centered Design Course Threads Symposium. And so some background information, I am currently a third year studying media studies, and my design background is definitely more suited for like graphic design, visual design, so that's really where I came from. And I participated in a lot of clubs here at Berkeley, including Cal Apparel, Spoon University, and I run my own photography business, so probably if you guys ever need photo shoots in the future. So I've definitely dabbled a lot in like the graphic design and photography kind of world. And I didn't really know about human-centered design until I took some courses, which included Sociology 167, which was about virtual communities and social media. I took Design Innovation 90, which is about design methods, as well as Design Innovation 190, which I'm currently taking with Sarah and Miranda as well, which is user experience design. And perhaps my most favorite and life-changing class so far here at Berkeley was Critical Practices, which is New Media 190, I believe, and it's being offered next semester if you guys want to sign up for it. So in that course was when I got introduced to how design isn't just about aesthetics, but it's more about, or it can be more than aesthetics. It's also about getting people to think in new ways, to get people to interact with the environment differently. For example, I don't know if you guys have seen the yellow tape by Corey, in the little walkway area. So that was for critical practices, but that was my group. But also another example for that class was the fountain that they created out of laser cut acrylic a year ago that they installed in the Sproul fountain. I don't know if you guys also remember that. Yeah, there was like hanging water drops, and that was also supposed to be designed for the class, and it was about promoting awareness of the California droughts. But personally, for my projects that I did in critical practices, that included some smaller scale projects that ranged to like getting people to think on a more wider perspective. And for example, one of the projects was picking a Berkeley public celebrity, which meant identifying someone in the Berkeley community who might not necessarily be like an actual celebrity, but is well known by the community. And for example, my group, we chose Sam, and he's like this really, really nice guy who owns Cheese and Stuff, which is the sandwich shop on Southside. And what we decided to do was we did a lot of interviews with him, his coworkers, the people who visited him, and we really got a sense of the kind of person that he was and how personal he was, and how like because of him, people would go to the shop, not just for the food, but because of him. And from there, we had a group of people, including me, and it was great because we all had different backgrounds. So we had people with backgrounds in CX, we had people with backgrounds in more industrial design, so they knew how to do like wiring, like breadboard stuff, and I was like, I don't know any of that. So it was really cool, like being able to see different ways that people from different backgrounds could come together and create something. And from there, we created a sandwich board for Sam, which was legit a like standing sandwich board that was shaped like a sandwich, and it basically like advertised for Sam, and it would say things like come for Sam and stay for the Sam, or come for sandwiches and stay for Sam. And from there, so we had like smaller scale designs, and then on a more bigger design scale, we created in another group project for critical practices. We created an interactive scale, which included like little 3D printed animal figurines. And the point of our project was for people to interact with the scale and try to see how the figurines could balance out. And the figurines included like broccoli, little chickens, and like a cow. And the point was to see if people could figure out how many chickens or how many broccoli could equal the weight of one cow. And when people figured that out, they were like, okay, cool, like, what is this supposed to mean? And the point of our project was to get across that the amount of carbon emissions that is produced from eating beef or from raising cows equals compared to raising chickens, or if you were a vegetarian and you ate produce, I guess. And but also from there, we understood that it would be very difficult for people to directly switch from eating red meat to just eating vegetarian. And so we took the more viable approach, and we're like, okay, like you can at least try to eat less red meat and eat more chicken. And it was interesting because this actually was what convinced my housemate to start eating vegetarian, because she saw our project and was like, wow, like this really gets you to think about how big of an impact this actually is. So from that course, critical practices was where I really learned a lot about like design methods, like user research, just designs that could get people to start thinking critically, hence critical practices. And so to go on and explain about what this is supposed to be about, I'm not sure what's highlighted, so that's my bad. But I went on to join Berkeley Innovation, which like half of you guys are in as well. And so this is the project that we made this semester, and Pamela is actually on my team. And so this, I'm really appreciative of Berkeley Innovation because it's where I really got a more solidified knowledge of what, or how human-centered design can apply to the production of everyday things. And from my project on my turn, like being able to experience what goes on in the back end makes you appreciate like every like boring button that might be out there, because you know that every single thing has some reason for it. So really quickly, I'll just run through what our project was about and some of the processes we went through. Oh, cool, it works. All right, so some background. My Turn is a modern cloud-based platform that's intended for sharing tools or for renting tools. So for example, at the Richmond Tool Library, they currently use My Turn, which is kind of like you go in, and if you want to rent a tool, which might be for garden tools or it might be for like some hardware equipment, you would go in and usually there's an administrator present, and you go to the person and you would be like, hey, I want to check out these tools. You take those tools and then the administrator will come check it out for you. So another term that the My Turn company likes to call themselves is like the library of things. And what their problem was that they presented to Berkeley Innovation and our team was they wanted to create a self-checkout system in order to extend hours to get more accessibility. So from there, our team decided to do some research, and this included going to, research questions. So from our research, what we wanted to answer were the attitudes and opinions of current users, and how can My Turn improve its current checkout system. From here, we decided to do different methods of research, and this included going to the locations that use My Turn or similar platforms, which included Richmond Tool Library, the Berkeley Tool Library, which is actually located by the Berkeley Library on Oxford, I believe. We also observed the Amazon lockers because that system was maybe something that My Turn wanted to look into. And we also did user interviews. So at these different locations, we would stop people and be like, hey, can we have a couple of minutes of your time to ask you about like your experience, like pros and cons, that kind of thing. And going on, here are just some pictures of the locations that we visited. And from there, we developed personas. And so we kind of narrowed all of our interviews down and grouped them into 3 different types of personas. So the first would be a college student, and this person would be highly tech savvy. They would typically be doing external lending. For example, My Turn is also being deployed at University of North Carolina, where they use it to lend bikes to students on campus. And then the second persona would be professional workers. So my team is also being used at like Intuit and Kaiser Permanente, I believe, where the workers who are at the company, they have knowledge of the tools that they're using. They might be moderately tech savvy because they're like working age. They would typically just go in, they know where they're going in for, get the item and leave. And lastly, we have the persona of dads. So this was something we observed more at the tool libraries. And we noticed that a lot of people who were coming in were like parents who were working on personal home projects. They would come in before or after work, which is why my turn wants like a self-checkout system, because the tool libraries weren't open all the time. And these people were coming in asking for like, oh, like it would be nice if it was open more often. They also typically are minimally tech savvy, like they kind of know their way around technology. And sometimes they would also need assistance, like they would come in not knowing what they needed, or they would come in thinking they needed one item, and then the admin would say, oh, maybe you need this other item, or maybe you need like all of these items. So from here, we kind of drew our insights, observations, and our personas, and we created low fidelity sketches. And what our team did was we created a user flow first off to see how the checkout system could work. And then from there, we individually ideated and decided to sketch our own interpretations. So that was really interesting because you got to see how we each approached the user flow differently. And then at the end, we discussed and came together to create a mid-fidelity prototype. So we just collectively, we discussed for a really long time, but it seems like it didn't take that long to come up with these ideas. But basically, we discussed, what buttons were necessary, how simple should we make the interface in order to be able to be inclusive for the extreme users, which means the college students who are extremely tech savvy versus the dads who might not be that tech savvy. And then here's some more screens of our mid-5 prototype, which is all in black and white, if you notice, in order to just be very to the point about what is needed. And from there, we did some user testing, and that meant deploying our prototype and asking our friends to test it out, see if they knew what things were intuitive and what weren't. And from there, we got some very helpful feedback in order to move on to our next step. And from there, we created our hi-fi prototype, which is supposed to be more, as close to the working solution as we could. And sorry, it's super blurry, but basically these are a lot of the screens. So just imagine that all of these come together, and hopefully that when you're using the system, it would lead from one screen to the other. And here are some more close-ups. Maybe some things to mention are how just the design of even the simplest interface, the cart over here. We spent a lot of time debating about, Ella knows, Pamela shaking her head. Just everything from the placement of the number pad, because we're okay, we'll go on the right, since most people are right-handed, so maybe their first intuition would be touching the right side. And then other people during user testing, they're but that's confusing, since that's supposed to be the first step, so maybe that should be on the left, because you read from left to right. So there are all these things to consider when you're creating even something as seemingly simple as a basic interface. Okay, sorry, this is the last page, but maybe some things that I want to mention in conclusion were I just don't have, or I have definitely just started my journey in human-centered design, and I acknowledge that. And I know that there's a lot more for me to learn, but I'm really excited too, because these classes have been so eye-opening. And before I was all about just visual design and using these designs for marketing and whatnot, but getting into human-centered design has allowed me to see that there's ways to design in everyday life, creating solutions for social issues, or just to get people to think in a different way. And I hope that you guys all will also maybe think about human-centered design as a career or a path that you could look into in the future.